As many as 300. Again, that's not really saying much considering that they've probably mass murdered over 500,000 to 750,000 Palestinian people, at least half of them being children. Some of them just can't take it. And that's unfortunate. And as much as I would like to say that I feel bad for somebody who decides, or excuse me, Tomas is of Lithuanian extraction, not Greek. My apologies for that. It sounds like a very Greek name, but it isn't. And so a few little interesting tidbits about this particular man, and I'm just going to pull up this screenshot so you all can see. This will really give you a good idea of what's been going on in the minds of these mass murderers, because some of them simply can't live with their indiscretions. And so in the case of Tomas Azauskis, put this together by Zaid Akhtar. So if you can just see this writing, I'm going to read it to you guys, but if you can see it. Israeli soldier commits suicide after partaking in Gaza genocide. Lithuanian Israeli soldier Tomas Azauskis, who took part in the genocide in Gaza, committed suicide after posting a message on social media saying, "I did things that cannot be forgiven." That is correct. October 7th, the date that ruined my life and destroyed everything I was. I can't anymore. I am ruin and devastation. I did things that cannot be forgiven, and I cannot live with it anymore. No one understands me anyway. There is a demon inside me that has been chasing me since 7/10. Please forgive me and remember that Tomas, who was an officer and a sniper commander, that Tomas died on the 7th. I am only a soul searching for peace. For 2 years now, I haven't been able to live with myself. 2,100 Israeli soldiers have attempted suicide since October 7th, 2023. 300 have succeeded. All right. Is that 14%? Guess it could be worse. Something very interesting about his statement that I think we should all be very keenly aware of. He says that his life was ruined on October 7th. Now, as a member of the IOF, why would October 7th have ruined his life? Notice something very interesting about this statement. He does not mention the Palestinian people once. I'm sure he mass murdered quite a few of them over the last 2 years. But what cannot be disputed here is that he's referring specifically to the actions he partook in on October 7th. And what does that lead one to believe? There's only one possibility, and only one. The Hannibal directive is real, and the mass murder of the Palestinian people commenced in conjunction with the slaughtering of probably, I guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 800 to 1,000 Israelis were killed that day. Now, is it possible that he was responsible for killing several of those Israelis? Yeah, I would think that that's very likely. And then what you learn over time is that the Hannibal directive was done at the behest of a tyrant president who is the biggest mass murderer that this world has seen since Mao Zedong. And so you really have to ask yourself, how do all the Israelis feel about their current predicament? Because it's only going to get worse. For the aristocrats, as we've pointed out, if you saw the clip that we dropped earlier regarding Michael Eisenberg, yeah, probably 800,000 Palestinians have now been mass murdered. And then, of course, you had Elon Carr, the oligarchs, the people that truly run this country, run this world. They don't give a damn. They have their ideology, but in the end, it's all about money and power. For those that are true believers of the Israel cause, as this Tomas apparently was, he didn't want to live with himself knowing that he was mass killing his own people, apparently. But it takes a certain level of sadistic behavior to carry out what they've carried out. That would make the Nazis blush, that would make any of the worst atrocities committed under Stalin or Mao Zedong blush, to the tragedies going on in Sudan, in Nigeria, Syria, Yemen, what they did to Libya. All of this comes home to roost. Afghanistan, Iraq. The Nazis learned from the US, and then the US learned from the Nazis during the Cold War. So it's not a surprise. This behavior is not unique. It's actually very common. When you have a genocidal ideology, expect the worst. And here is exactly why no one should shed a tear for this guy. You know, I got to tell you, you look at these people and you would think, oh, yeah, absolutely. They have to be native to this part of the world. And the way that they just so gleefully terrorize and hurt these innocent people, these especially women and children, and they do it gleefully. And they're still doing it. And they think that this is a joke. And someone is asking, what was that? Well, it's a whole bunch of IOF soldiers having just terrorized a family in the West Bank. I don't know if they killed them, but I know that for them, they like to mock the other culture, pretend that this is all acceptable discourse. It's not. In fact, it's heinous behavior. The worst type of people do these things. And we, for the past 2 years, and obviously for the past 75, this is what we have been reduced to. We have to do everything in our capacity to break this unholy alliance, which is in direct correlation to this broken economic and political system with which we are being terrorized under every day of our lives. That is the mission of our channel. We do not have some hidden agenda. We're very crystal clear about what we're trying to do. We're trying to build as big a coalition as possible, and we will cross that Rubicon where we will go where we need to go and say the things that need to be said. Because let's be honest, there are several channels out there on both sides of the political spectrum, although I really can't say that it's one and the same, because as we know, the lines are being blurred every day in terms of what's left and right, what's red and blue. What we know that cannot be disputed, cannot be argued, is that these people are psychotic. Their whole ideology is psychotic. And I don't want anything to do with them. And as my trusty partner likes to say, they must be lanced off like a boil. And that ultimately means a revolution here in the United States. Now, it doesn't have to be bloody, but that revolution starts with the disintegration of the relationship between the US and Israel. We are them, they are us, but only at the top. It would appear that the overwhelming majority of the people of this country are not on board with this. Probably never were, but were more or less not as informed. Because as we know, there's a lot of gatekeepers out there that don't tell the full story about what's going on. They don't tell the full detail about what actually happened on October 7th and thereafter. the Zios are still lying about what happened on that day. They're not going to talk about the fact that the Hannibal directive is real, that a lot of their soldiers are trying to basically off themselves. I always find it interesting when someone says they try to commit suicide and they fail. How do you fail exactly? I'm always curious as to how you fail at committing suicide. That's got to be very interesting to understand. I'm not fully buying into this. If you really want to end it, I believe you can end it. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Now, you could argue, or as Jen points out, they don't really want to die. That's probably true too. I would say that that's definitely a distinction. I would say that some people say that they're going to commit suicide, but in reality, what they want is it's a cry for help. So I get that. People don't want to be stuck in these situations. Who would? The hard reality is that Zionists do not see themselves as anything but victims. That's all they see. Which is why when somebody like this, who was crying out at the very end before he decided it was time to go, he didn't make one mention at all of the genocide. This was basically a woe is me. Oh, feel bad for me. Feel bad that I have to kill myself because of what I did on October 7th. What, you mean following orders like a good Nazi? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Not, what have we become? We have become everything that we swore that we would not.